This is Yummy Cheese Man doing the first ever OCE chat show. It's called The Pinch. And I'm here with my lovely co-host, the bearded wonder himself, Nolski from Rocket League Oceania.
What's up, everybody? Good to be here.
Almost looking like you're putting your middle finger up to the chat. There is a bit of a issue with the webcam, just of getting a few two frames. We have had this
Mm.
issue a little bit, and I think it's mostly to do with Nolski's upload speed. But we'll find that out in future. It'll come back and go away. But big shout out to Wasted. Wasted was the one who forced me to actually get this done. I've been planning on doing it for roughly 3 months now.
Jeez.
As soon as I started working on the ability to stream, and it's one of those things that never gets done. But Wasted literally bashed me over the head for 4 weeks to make sure it got done. He came up with the name The Pinch, and so big shout out to him. It's his fault that you guys have to listen to us today, talking about stuff that we don't know anything about. And speaking of that, Nolski, we have today, I don't even know if I've really introduced the topics to even you. I think it's better that way. Topics for today is ESL
So,
LAN, roster instability, and ranking changes. If you type exclamation mark topics in the chat, and you will get reminded of those things. But no, it's just great to be here. Great everybody in the community's coming around, and glad that Nolski you can be on as well.
yeah, me too. It's gonna be good.
All right, awesome. Well, let's go straight into it. The first topic that we have is the ESL PAX LAN. And for those who don't know, 4 days before the qualifiers and 2 weeks before PAX in Melbourne is meant to go underway, there was an announcement by ESL, a last minute effort to go ahead and organize a 5,000 US dollar LAN, all of that prize money up by Psyonix. And so ESL had 4 days to go ahead and organize qualifiers for that, and then there's 2 weeks for all these teams to quickly book tickets, pay for flights, even for one of the teams, find sponsors to be able to go. So a very ridiculous scenario, but there's a lot of really interesting things to talk about it. In particular, for me, the big point is that Psyonix put in that 5,000 US dollars.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's been a long time coming for a lot of the people in OCE who feel we should have been included in the RLCS season two. I think it's going to be great for everyone involved, spectators alike. I cannot wait for PAX.
Yeah, PAX is going to be really awesome. I can't go because, well, I can go, but I'm cheap. So I'm not going. Meanwhile, this asshole living in Melbourne gets to
Oh,
go.
I'm the lucky one.
You're the lucky one. I'll be the
hmm
lucky one, hopefully, for Roquette Land
hmm
over in Sydney. But yeah, that's huge. It's
Yeah,
huge for the
absolutely.
scene, huge for Australia. 5,000 US dollars just thrown in. And if you really think about it, for Psyonix, that's a drop in. It's a drop in the ocean.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's right.
Assumedly, that money came from Keys, and I'm assuming the amount of money they got from Keys is well over 1 million.
Well, maybe it's just from Keys from our our region. Maybe just like a drop in the pond for just for our region.
Yeah, well, it is big for us. It's big to have a great land, but the next real point is they gave 4 days. So you go from the
Yeah.
good about it all the way to why it was super bad. They gave 4 days essentially, or 2 weeks in total before the land, to really
Yeah.
say to ESL, this is what we're doing. We're giving you this money, and now
Yeah.
go ahead and make it a thing. That amount of time is not enough time to organize a $50 tournament, let alone a 5,000 US dollar or 6,500 Australian dollar tournament.
Yeah, that's right. I suppose we have to be grateful to having ESL in our region as well, with their experience and someone with someone like B-Bears behind it all.
Yeah, it's good having B-Bears. He's a bit of a community guy. Been on the power rankings before. I'm getting Twitch messages, not Twitch messages, Skype messages. Need to figure out how to. Alright, well, I've hidden it. Hopefully, it'll stop beeping at me. Because that's not the best thing ever. But
No, that's not. Skype's a lovely program, isn't it?
it's absolutely the best. Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, 4 days. They went into a double elimination tournament for the monthly qualifiers,
Hmm.
and I was pissed personally at this. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous that the top 8 teams that were invited came from weekly tournaments that had only been running for 4 weeks and started with random seeding.
Yeah.
They started random seeding, and certain teams, such as Gameroos, so this is a part of it, is that I was, or my team at least, not me
Hmm.
because I don't
Yeah.
play anymore, was directly affected because we had some bad seeding early on, and the seeding carried over to next week. So a team that's not within that top 14 that's expected to do well no matter who they put up against uh, has a much harder run to get into that top 8 when you compare it to a team that got an easy run early on and then for future weeks had really favorable seeding and could
Yeah.
continue to make decent runs. Like, okay runs was enough to make it into that top 8. And
Hmm.
all of that is fine, except for the fact that this, both the monthly final and the ESL final, 5,000 US dollars again, was not announced until after all this. So a team, the teams also couldn't just spend their week or go into those weeklies and try as hard as they could.
Yeah. Look, there's been some questions about the way that ESL does their seeding, and it's not something I technically agree with. But it is, I suppose, it is their right to seed it how they like. I mean, it is their tournaments, but I think it would be fairer for everyone in the scene if we had like a standardized seeding process based off something like power rankings. Well, but that's for a later discussion, I suppose, for tonight.
Yeah,
Uh,
power rankings are pretty stupid anyway.
but look, at least it's definitely better than starting off with randomized seedings, especially preceding a tournament as big as this, especially what's the biggest in our region, followed up by a LAN. I think starting with that process, like a randomized process, is probably not the best idea. But that being said, they worked with what little time they had, what little options they had.
Yeah, it's unfavorable, but and their system. To give you context, I have spoken to ESL. I spoke to Ozymandias and
Mhm.
B-Bears about this. I literally sat in a chat with them for about 2 hours, and
Jeez, yeah.
they do not like ESL are a really big organization. Uh,
Mm.
it's great to have them in OCE now because they can get this kind of stuff done, um, and they have experience with this stuff, and they're confident in their ability for this seeding to work, but they're not really thinking the entire way through. Perhaps they're not Rocket League aficionados or
Mhm.
anything like this, but most importantly, their system does work over a very long span of time. Even after 8 weeks, I'm confident that the seeding that they will have will be perfectly adequate for finding top 8 teams for monthly finals.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that it was advantageous for them to get into this top 8 was a big deal.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, but yeah, that is
But
the
it
big
sort of worked it
exciting
out
thing.
itself out at the end, didn't it? I
It did.
suppose.
I
Yeah.
do really like the top 4 teams that qualified. So Legacy, Atletico, and Abyss. Uh,
Mhm.
One thing that I like to note about those 3 teams is that all 3 teams in the last month have been number 1 on the power ranking.
Yeah.
And then you have the brand new team, Cringe Society, who are such a enigma right now. They're so unknown. They've been together less than 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Their first match I saw was on Monday, Tuesday Gameroos, not last week but the week before.
Hmm.
So they'd been together less than 2 weeks. They came in, they got some, they beat a couple of top teams, but then they got to that final, and in some ways the seeding was advantageous to them, but they really earned that title by beating out Abyss,
Yeah.
and then all they needed to do from there was take on Furox. And you could argue that given a different type of double elimination bracket where it felt like the top half of the bracket was stacked,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter because they earned that spot. They even beat Atletico afterwards.
Yep.
Granted, Atletico were fucking around.
Yeah, but it's still Atletico.
It's still Atletico. If you can beat Atletico despite them using Mercs and Atletico using J Cook, you're still proving that you can beat a top 4 team,
Yeah,
regardless
that's right.
of their form. Um,
Yeah.
But it's going to be a super awesome LAN. Those 3 top 1 teams all have huge performance to prove of
Yeah.
themselves, and then Cringe Society coming in most likely with a sponsor, and I can't announce who that sponsor is, but they are going to be sponsored on their trip to LAN, as you would expect.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
And
That's good to hear.
and they're going to come through and hopefully cause some upsets.
Hmm. I mean, everyone loves an underdog story. I'll definitely be rooting for them.
Yeah, they're the huge underdogs, and on top of that, they're just an unknown. So they
Mhm.
could be technically the best team there, and we just don't know yet.
Yep.
They're also it's also interesting to think about for these teams. Legacy has the most LAN experience, having won two out of the 3 players won the CGPL finals,
Hmm.
and I can announce it. Alpha Sydney has sponsored Cringe Society. So a huge
Okay.
organization that just essentially lost their team, lost their star roster, who are really looking forward to the growth of the scene.
Hmm.
Just sponsored Cringe Society, a really big pickup for both Alpha Sydney and for the boys over at Cringe Society. Jake the Tyrant, Torsos, and Trip 8, really big for them. It's good to see them getting a top org already. Again, time will tell whether that is going to be a great pickup as well. You never know if they totally flunk out and break up. It could be a completely terrible decision. But talking of breaking up, I think that does lead straight into our second point, and that is
The OCE shuffle.
OCE constant shuffle. Roster instability
Yeah.
is the topic I've listed.
Hmm.
But right now, the region is just full of people constantly changing teams disbanding. Have you got much insight into that?
I know mainly because I spent so long trying to look for someone for my team, and well, being in the power rankings gets you a lot of information about that stuff.
Um, well, even Phoenix Gaming, they lost a member recently, didn't they? Or they've at least
No,
had roster issues.
yeah, we had roster issues at the beginning. Originally we had picked up Division, which was Epinai, IDK, and Tenacity. Then we decided to switch out Tenacity for someone. In I suppose in our inexperience, we didn't have a backup ready or a sub ready to go. So we picked up Wolfie. Wolfie soon afterwards left for Furox to join his mates in a team, which I don't mind that.
Yeah.
But I mean that left us a hole, and we recently picked up Noisy. And then when we started playing with Noisy, we finished third in
Fourth.
the in Mocket, and fourth in the ESL Open qualifier. So it seems like a much more solid lineup. But my philosophy as a manager is to make sure that I can formulate a team of players who are committed to improving for themselves and for each other. Sticking together mainly is a big part of that.
Yeah.
Having to willing to put yourself out there To face those times where you're gonna get shit on sometimes. That's just gonna happen. That's
Or
competitive sport
especially if you're
slash
Phoenix
esport.
Gaming.
Especially if you're Phoenix game. Jeez, Yuri. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows, and you got to stick it out. And I want a team that does that.
So there's obviously a lot going on around that and
Mhm.
these teams that are breaking up. Because in the past, these teams didn't break up. In particular, I can think back to Season 3 of Cybergamer combined with RLOC Winter Championships. And those two tournaments ran both over about 3 months. And in that time, the amount of stability in the region was so much because these teams stuck together. They were working for a long goal and trying really hard to improve over that entire time.
Yep.
And we saw better quality Rocket League and better, team stability at the same time. I know as a power ranker back then, I, I don't think you were you came in the power ranking with the power ranking shuffle. Um,
Yeah.
but in terms of the roster shuffle, I was there during that long stability in which getting into that top 10 was a difficult task. Nowadays, a team like Phoenix Gaming can make it into top 10. And, I can understand why people like Wolfie and whatnot would want to leave a team like that. Um, but exactly what you said, the way to be a top team is to play a lot with your team and stick together and work together. If you want to make a team in OCE that is the best, you either have to be Cringe Society getting 3 of the best mechanical players and then doing your best on short notice and hoping to get lucky, or you sit there and you work on it like every other team has.
Yep.
Not a single team in that top 4, that big 4 that I would talk about, and I'm not
Yep.
talking about the ESL top 4, I'm talking about the top 4 in OCE who have historically been far better, far, far better than the teams below them. Atletico seem to have come out of nowhere, but they spent 3 months together, or two
Yeah,
and a
that's
half
right.
months or something together, practicing and scrimming every single day. Same with Gameroos, who came second in RLOC. We were together just a little bit less than Atletico, playing dailies, the CG dailies, playing Gameroos, and just scrimming 3 or 4 nights a week.
Yep.
And working hard on our play and sticking together. So find. I can say the same for Legacy. Obviously, they've been together for essentially a year, and
Mhm.
Alpha Sydney, very similar as well. But it's that sticking together. Find 2 people that you just love playing with, that you really enjoy playing with, that can take criticism well and is willing to work as hard as you are. They have the same kind of goals. Because it doesn't matter what your mechanical skill is, you can work on that. It doesn't matter what your teamwork is, you can work on that. It
I
doesn't
mean, you can
matter.
attest to that.
Yeah, I come into season 3 of CG. I had 400 hours. I was so bad I couldn't hit a ball off the wall. Both my teammates were far better, and I practiced 100 hours a fortnight till I had 1100 hours and came second and won $1,000 to share.
Yep.
Uh, and if people just aren't doing this, they're not investing the time into a single team to uh, turn that team into the best team. They're just looking for magic combos that instantly work, and that's
Yeah.
not how it works. You don't need to instantly have the best synergy ever. You just need to be on the same page.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's right. Yeah. Look, I get the feeling that a lot of people, but essentially the demographic in OCE is very young, and young people tend to be impulsive. So if they don't see results as quickly as they expect them to see, then they're going to go elsewhere. Which I think it's a bad habit that they have to work out. They have to work it out of their system.
it's hard, it's understandable that after you take a loss in a tournament, that you're going to be sad. You're
Yeah,
going
of
to
course.
be absolutely messed up. But there's some really great examples of teams recently in this roster instability that have broken up for different reasons. Legacy swapped Orion for Groovy and Drippay, and then Drippay left. So a whole bunch of instability there. We
Yeah.
do know that Orion left because of school and wanted to, actually work on his career, which in
Yep.
itself is probably a smart idea. Don't give up other things just for Rocket League right now.
Yeah. Just
Um,
esports in general.
and Drippay, I don't think he was too satisfied, and I'm sure the chat will tell me I'm wrong on this one because I can see Soma and Groovy Grape from Legacy in chat. But I think Drippay was not going to be satisfied at any point in time being in a rotating core position and wanted to find a big team on his own to go with. He probably would have stayed, except for the fact that playing with Jake and Torsos went really well for them, and it might have been slightly impulsive to do it after just a few days. But at least they spent a few days instead of being one of those teams that form after one day where they did well,
Like in a Gameroos tournament.
like in a Game Ruse tournament. The
Yeah.
most important thing is you need to play some tournaments where you win, and also some tournaments where you lose, because it's how you lose together that is the most important. If you're not going out of that loss without being super angry at each other, blaming each other, and going out of that loss with learning, then
That's right.
you're going to struggle as well.
Yeah, it's
Um,
much easier to find things from games that you lose, matches that you lose, rather than matches that you win, just because you'll just naturally find more things to pick out.
And big one, Alpha Sydney have been together since the dawn of time, it feels like. Dumbo left them, and so there went the rest of the team as well. Stony, not sure what is happening with him. Dicky, I think, has found work, and so his schedule is not on the same level as it used to be.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
haven't
a
seen Dicky around in a long time since the 2v2 LAN, so I'm not really sure where he's gone.
Yeah, it's a tough one for him if you don't have that schedule. How are you going to be the best? So
That's right.
that's why Dumbo left. He wants to be the best,
Hmm.
and he's playing with a bunch of different people, seemingly looking to find a team. But so far, do not know what he will end up as. Uh, Alpha Sydney, the sponsor, left with it because they're not going to sit on a team that is essentially fading away. But it is
Yeah,
nice to
that's
see
fine.
them playing in Roquette as well to finish that off and see if they can go to LAN together. Because those guys, for context, they've had plenty of opportunities in the past for one of them, two of them to leave and make super teams with other people. But they just sat and stuck out their problems and worked on it together.
Yeah.
And in the end, it just wasn't enough because it different. But those guys are really great friends, and I can't see them having any animosity between each other leaving.
Well, that's great to hear as well. That's great to hear. But Dumbo's going to be a big pickup wherever he goes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's widely regarded as one of the best players in OCE. So I'm wondering if perhaps there'll be a shift in one of the top four, or maybe one of the top four teams will start looking for problems within lineups. I don't know, maybe just like find an excuse to bring a player like Dumbo in. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see those lineups that have been together for so long just make way for Dumbo, or just any top player. But I'd like to see what Dumbo comes up with. It should be interesting.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that there could be a team that does that, but I don't think so. I think that'd be stupid to do it. If they did, they'd be shooting themselves in the foot.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see what Dumbo does. There's other teams as well. A race, the team of 1,000 players finally disbanded. They couldn't find enough players out of the 100 people they had on their roster to fill out the team anymore. But more importantly, it just seems that a race, as an organization, has also gone missing from
Yeah.
the scene. I think there might be some personal issues of the owner there.
Yeah, that's right.
They have gone missing, and that is hard on the team as well.
Mhm.
It felt that personalities didn't quite mix well enough and they weren't progressing at the rate they wanted to. I'm sure that they understood that they actually started having some success taking down Alpha Sydney and feeling better about themselves, but it just wasn't enough. They didn't feel they were progressing fast enough.
Yep.
I guess.
I wonder if like the org essentially dissolving, at least for the Rocket League side. I'm not sure if the CS:GO side is still together, but maybe the Rocket League org dissolving had an effect on it as well. Not really sure. I can't say for certain, but I feel that if that was just the case, then they would stick together as a team and continue. But you're probably right.
And Soma is asking who are the super teams. They have been the top 4 teams for a long time. You can guess who they are, but they revolve around the teams that you had to beat at least one of those teams, but usually multiple of those teams to make it into the top 4. Final one I wanted to talk about was Corvidae, and that was a big one. So Daisu leaves Corvidae after a couple of months of really hard work. Those guys were really putting in the scrim time, and that is what I really look at. I'm not looking at people who spend all day fucking around in ranked, spend all day
casual
in casuals or anything like that, practicing their freestyles or whatever. I'm looking strictly at scrim time to see if somebody is ready to be in a top team. So Corvidae put all this time in, and Daisu ends up leaving after they didn't qualify for LAN.
Well, look, I think that's a simplistic way of looking at it. I think he explained himself well on his Twitter. It does to the public without having known anything about that. It looks like a reactionary response to what happened, but it may have been something that was building up for a while. A couple of personal issues as well. Sort of like a Gambit thing. That's probably the easiest way to put it. But I do expect him to come back in one way or another. Maybe next season or next year he'll give it another go after a little bit of a break.
I mean, personally, I want to call Daisu out. I want to say, I think if you're trying, regardless of your situation, when you lose a tournament, you shouldn't be going straight to Twitter. You shouldn't be going up and being overly melodramatic. The Twit longer was great. I really like that, but going there and trash talking yourself and making yourself look a little silly is not great for the Rocket League scene, and it's not great for people trying to get sponsors in or looking like you're a professional. Because if you're trying to be a professional, part of that is taking a loss well and being professional about it. I can totally, however, empathize with Daisu. It's just that he's a young guy. He came in and worked really hard on his dream, spent a lot of time, and then fell short on the post. There is, as you said, a lot of things around that, but saying stuff like, I spent six months playing 10 hours a day, one, can be disproven, but for this LAN, but B, is silly because the LAN came up, as we said earlier, with 4 days notice. So that is untrue. So is a lot of other things, and there's a lot of melodrama about young guys. I think he's 18, losing all kind of career, education, those kind of prospects. You're a young guy. None of those have fallen to the wayside. I think everybody in their life wastes at least a couple of years doing stupid shit. I spent 6 years at uni, and half of that was on the wrong degree, and I spent the other half fucking around. Everybody does that, and it's not the end of the world, no matter what. But there is, on the other side, there is something huge that I would agree with Daisu. And he said this in his tweet longer, and it's a really important point, is that if you're playing Rocket League, and all you're doing is thinking about Rocket League and playing Rocket League all day, the moment that you lose, you're going to feel like a piece of shit. That is 100% true, I think, for anybody doing anything solely in their life. And you see it all the time. And I did it myself when I was a player, and that is a big reason that I sort of didn't enjoy playing so much, is that my entire life revolved around Rocket League. I was putting all this time in, and I wasn't spending time going out with friends as much. I wasn't finding some work to do or anything like that. So my life was Rocket League. So if I failed at Rocket League, I failed at life. So it's really important, if you are those people who are trying to become a professional esports player or Rocket League player or anything like that, that you make sure that you have something outside of Rocket League on a regular basis that you can commit yourself to.
Yeah, it's all about balance. Balance is very important.
Yeah, and it's you only really need to play 5 hours a day, really smart, like efficient, improved practice, and that'll get you to the top. It
Yeah.
will be enough. People who are playing longer than that, by the time you've played 5 hours, your level of brain activity is just not going to be at the same. You're not going to be as efficient at your practice, and you're just not going to get that much more out of it.
Yeah.
You know, you can spend that extra time, and you should be making sure you have breaks, but there is plenty of time in the day to go out and exercise and make your physical fitness better. Go out and meet friends, go for a beer, go shopping, anything like that, to improve yourself. Because nobody can do more than full-time Rocket League, and if you are doing more than full-time Rocket League, you evaluate yourself.
I mean, even professional Counter-Strike players who are paid salaries well for what they do, they commit their 8 hours to it, but they also make sure that they balance it up. Even though the ones that live in houses, like team houses, or the ones that are on their own, is good to. You can still keep focused on what you want to do by distracting yourself. I know it sounds contradictory, but it's definitely works.
All right, well, that's a good chunk of topic to end.
If I
that
could just
one on.
quickly, I know we're not a top team, but I'm pretty sure I see Mine Race is here. I want to call her out for Enigma. Enigma being a promising Bees team who will finish second at the chase. Pretty much at the end of the chase have disbanded. Sirius Sam, Barto, IC Mine Racer, and Olords, I believe, was sub. I want to know why, for a team that was going to be that had a lot of potential, maybe not the right amount of mechanical skill compared to teams above them, but they were improving together. I want to know why that they disbanded.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, well, I have some background information. Definitely don't think that the players themselves enjoyed playing with each other so much when things went badly. So it wasn't really. I think they stuck it out for the chase, and then after that, kind of left on that note. I'm not 100% sure on that. That's completely conjecture, but because I said it, it's probably correct. So that is essentially it. But yeah, those B teams that are coming up, it's going to be much harder for you if you just can't stick it out and practice together, find ways to help each other play better. Watch each other's replays from their perspective. Anything to improve, because you're just not going to improve by randomly finding a new team.
So I think a good example of that is Furox Omega, who Icarus to Furox Omega to now Furox, just basically because their B side became good enough through work and determination, and eventually find themselves doing very well.
Yeah, doing quite well. They still need to be able to challenge those top the super teams. I'm going to turn that into a term. Super teams.
The super teams, I think you should, yeah.
In the article I'm writing, I've been referring to them as the Big Four, but I think super teams is a better one. But yeah, so I'm going to end that one. But that is a huge thing I've foreseen. That is the biggest thing right now that needs to be worked on. We need a big, long, overarching tournament, anything like that, or just pure education of these children. Even some of them 25-year-old children who cannot stick together as a team, and just work on it. It's literally just work. But we're going to move on to the next one. It's going to be a quicker one, and that is the rank changes So the rank system changed in a few weeks ago to balance out the bell curve and make it so that is a more even distribution and more people at Grand Champion, Champion, etc. And the
Mhm.
big problem with that is it probably means that Nolski now is in the blue star range, and that's absolutely ridiculous.
I was always in the blue star range.
That's
What are you gonna do me like that for?
that's disgusting. I don't well, like I can't think of anyone who could carry you on your team. Like IDK, Ep, and I wouldn't be able to do that. So I'm thinking that you found or paid somebody uh, on a good
For a
team
boost?
to boost you up.
Yeah, I've been speaking to Outlast on the side. Just have him carry me. It just plays 1v2 basically. I just sit in goals.
Or does
You
he just queue up against you and let you win?
No, no, no. It's look, I don't. The same thing happened in Counter Strike, but the difference is that the rank distribution for Grand Champion was 0.005%, which is tiny.
Yeah.
And that meant that what in the whole Rocket League population, out of all players, that's geez, less than 1,000 people.
Yeah, it is actually about 1,000 people. It's still a huge amount, but yeah,
Yeah,
there is a lot of Rocket League players.
yeah. But now it's changed to what is it, 0.2%, I think, off the top of my head. So I mean, there's a lot more, but it's still exclusive. Maybe Champ isn't as exclusive, but at least the Grand Champ is still fairly exclusive. If you're top 0.2% in anything, I think that's still very good.
Well, part of that is that includes all the unranked players, all the players who barely play, uh, and so I'm going to have to disagree with you that 0.2% is good. I do like it from the perspective of OCE because it means that the top OCE players get Grand Champ legitimately.
Okay.
And there aren't that many people in OCE. But I think that on a global scale, it doesn't quite work as well. Uh, with OCE, obviously, they could have done a very OCE centric thing and said, "Oh,
Mm.
you're an OCE player. We're going to give you your own bell curve," and that would have been a far better solution for regions like that where there's not that many people playing, and get um, you can't get to Grand Champ without you know
Without
flying
playing shitty
overseas.
ping servers, yeah.
Even on high ping, it's the high ping that'll stop you.
Yeah.
But uh, there was a good reason to have Grand Champ so exclusive, and that is because there was a target to aim for
Hmm.
between top 100 and just being in that super champ range. There was a target, but now there's so many people in Grand Champ that there's struggling to find a target that is attainable but better than where they are.
Yeah.
So you get to Grand Champ, and now you either have to make top 100, which you are probably, I think, in the top 10,000 or something at that point, which is quite a number. There is nowhere
Hmm.
near 10,000 professional players, um, so it's very easy to get to.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between 10,000 and top 100. So they could have done that, but they probably need to add another category for like super elite, top 1,000 or top 500 or something like that. That sits on top 500. It doesn't increase based on a percentage or anything like that, but
Hmm.
has a better target to go for.
Okay.
Um,
I wonder, like, the logistics behind doing like a variable rank distribution per region, because I would assume that South America would have a similar problem as we do.
yep.
I don't know, and maybe even Japan slash Asia. Like, I don't know specifically how they do in terms of their rankings. I'm assuming they just do what we did
It's the exact
and
same
played on
thing.
US West.
Japan always play on US West because
Yeah.
you for 2 hours on Japan if you're a good player. Same how it used to be, at least with OCE. People are sort of starting to get more even in that. But
Hmm.
um, in the end, uh, that would be also really difficult. But I'd love to see that sort of stuff from Psyonix. It's great that Psyonix are giving, as previously mentioned, $5,000 US prize to make a LAN. but it'd
Mhm.
also be great for them to start giving us some dev time. Things like, okay, your own unique rank distribution, uh, things like enabling US Central to be its own server group, at least for private matches, would allow us to A, avoid US Central when we're playing ranked, and B, allow us to
Mm.
play in US tournaments because they could, instead of favoring US East, they could at least favor US Central and
Yeah.
prevent us from having 280 ping.
I think a lot of the Americans are looking for essential server, a bunch of central servers as well.
Yeah. I think everybody is, but for Australia it would be really huge. But because we are such a low player base,
Yeah.
there's 20 million people here. I don't know how many actual Australian players of Rocket League there are. They don't give a crap about those kind of numbers from a developer time point of view.
Yeah. I mean, I think we account for about 2% of the Rocket League population,
Yes, we do.
something like
On
that.
the same note, we account for about 5.5% of the hardcore or professional or, serious Rocket League population. So we are
Yeah.
hitting way above our weight, way
Hmm.
above our weight, about 300% of our actual weight in regards to our competitive side, our commitment and passion there. And you are seeing some of the feedback of that through Psyonix, looking to get OCE into bigger tournaments, looking to get OCE into RLCS, including us in extra life events and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So that is essentially going to conclude everything. Uh, that is all of today's. It was a test run for this. So if you did like the chat show today, um, tell me about it. I'll have this on YouTube later on. Like, tell me if you really want to see more of it. Next week, we are planning on doing another big episode, regardless of whether you hate us or not, which is probably true. But next week, we will be going over predictions for the ESL LAN. We'll get somebody from each of the teams to come round and do the predictions with us, and possibly a couple of other idiots from the community to give their opinion as well. Um, but after that, we will go ahead and do. We'll go based on the community suggestions and everything like that. But otherwise, thank you for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excellent to have you, Nolski, and that is all.